Welcome to How to Share, a podcast that celebrates how we inspire others by sharing our stories. I'm Wynne Leon, and in this episode, I'm with author and educator Andrea Simon, and we're talking about her wonderful book, Did You Live the Life You Wanted? We talk about perspective, regret, and the meaning of life. She tells us why she chose to write this as a novel and how the course she taught about how to write about family plays into her writing. There are so many fantastic female friendships and characters in this book that spans 50 years. Andrea talks about how she asked men and women if they lived the life they wanted and what she learned differs when women and men answer that question. We talk about the meaning of life and how writing plays into that. Andrea's incredible experience as an educator and facilitator shines through as we dig into the depth of life and how we share it. This is a great episode, full of perspective and wisdom with a thoughtful guest. I know you'll love it. Hi, Andrea.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing so well, and I'm so excited for this conversation about your incredible novel, Did You Have the Life You Wanted?
And thank you. I'm
You,
excited to talk to you about it.
it has so much depth and interesting aspects to it, but you've really covered the genres. You've published 5 books. You've done
Yes.
novels, memoir, historical fiction, anthology. And I'm wondering if you can give us the elevator pitch for Did You Have the Life You Wanted? And tell us why you thought that writing this as a novel was the right genre.
Right. Well, I hope the elevator is very slow. Has a lot of flaws. I would say, Did You Have the Life You Wanted? It spans 50 years from 1968 onward. And it's basically, at least half of it takes place in the 1970s in New York's Greenwich Village, where the protagonist, Anita, who had a similar life to me, lived there during very turbulent times when gay rights movement was beginning, when feminist women had a new wave of interests and women were forming consciousness raising groups. There was Attica, there was the Vietnam War, of course. And so it was a time of great turbulence. And I spotlight the friendships of females during this formative time, and then look back again as an older person at these times of how Anita formed her, especially her occupation, and how she did not always do what she wanted to do, and how she tried to correct that over the years.
Right.
Elevator, you're at your floor.
And as you said that, there's some parallels to your life here, but this
Yes.
is a novel. So
Yes, the novel. Now, as you mentioned, every book I've done is quite different. From Bashir, the first one is a memoir and history based on the Holocaust and family members and what happened to them. And then I did a historical novel gleaned from the material that I received from the first book. And then my third book was also a sort of historical novel, and all had a lot of basis in my own life, but some were more true than others. I went from the memoir where there were real people, and then I went to this current book, which people who know me think it's me, but it really is a conglomeration. Some characters are fictionalized, some are combinations of people, but a lot of the events happened in real life, and certainly the historical events I tried to capture as realistically as possible. So every one of my books has an element of history, and it has an element of personal personality, and I would say this was more novelistic, even though people think it's a memoir, because I wanted to get more into the interiority of the main character, what she was thinking, how she saw life. And that's hard to do if you're writing the truth, because who really knows what people said,
Right.
You have
Right.
to make up some of it. And I felt that was too constrictive
Mm-hmm.
to be totally truthful. And I
Right.
also didn't want to write every little thing that happened in my life. I wanted to highlight the more instructive things,
Mm-hmm.
and then new things started happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to open myself up to that possibility. So that's why I call that a novel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or maybe it's an autobiographically influenced novel.
Right, right. And that's probably true of so many of the novels we read, right?
Yeah,
It's hard to get away from that. But one of the you taught writing at the City
yeah,
College of New York.
yeah,
And one of the questions that I saw, and maybe it was in relation with this book or a different one, was that you can answer was, how to write about your family and still have them talk to you afterwards.
yeah. That was the course I taught. That was the
Oh,
title of the course I
okay.
taught. Yeah. There were
Okay.
two. Well, this is not the city college, but
Yeah.
afterwards I started teaching online
Mm-hmm.
adults,
Mm-hmm.
and not that the city college students weren't adults, but they were
Right.
younger and
Right.
different. And so these were more people with years of life to
Yeah.
them. And one was because people have been asking me how to write about their relatives, and they're afraid to, and they don't want to offend anybody and all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So I had this one course, how to write about your family and still have them talk to you. And then that led to the next course, which was how
Yeah.
to write about your mom without guilt.
Yeah.
And that in that course, it happened during the COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and the women who they were all women who signed up for it,
Mm-hmm.
and they were all over the country, including one woman from Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And we started, talking about our mothers, and within
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes, people were crying. I mean, it was just it became
Mm-hmm.
very emotional. And after the course ended, nobody wanted to leave. We felt so tied to each other
Mm-hmm.
that we said, okay, we'll continue to meet. I won't be the teacher. I'll just be
Right.
a member. And
Yeah.
we'll talk about other things, although the mothers kept coming
Yes.
back into the conversation.
Right.
And so we ended up producing an anthology of our best essays. And I was the editor and
Mm-hmm.
contributor of that one too. So and that subject that you asked, came up all the time. How do I write about this? I don't really
Mm-hmm.
want to offend my mother. I mean, many people's mothers were dead, but
Mm-hmm.
still, you
Right.
don't want to upset that. And I always say, don't use if you want to say something sensitively,
Mm-hmm.
and don't really want to offend someone who's alive, you change the name, you change the physical characteristic, you change
Mm-hmm.
the occupation, and you hope that you treat that person with respect and dignity.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never had anybody really complain to me
Mm-hmm.
about what I've written about them, except my mother, who's now dead. But when I wrote this book about growing up in the Catskill Mountains for the summer times, which I did,
Mm-hmm.
and it was more autobiographical than some of the other things I wrote. And I said to her, if you read this, I don't want to hear any criticism. And she said, okay, and she promised, and I knew she wouldn't keep to it. But anyway, at the end of a few days of nervous tension,
Mm-hmm.
she said, I have one complaint. And I said, all right, what is it? She said, why did you name the mother Estelle? My own name is so much better. So, I tell that story to people, and
Yeah.
they laugh because some people really are flattered when you write about them.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah. And what did you answer her?
She was right. I said I didn't want you to be angry that I wrote about you. I mean, she was right that her name was better. No, I was happy that that was the only thing she found,
Right, right,
and she
right.
was kind of proud to be in the book.
Yeah,
In a sort
yeah,
of weird way.
right, right.
So really, I mean, the bottom line is, you should write, I think, to please yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have things that are sensitive that you want to write about,
Mm-hmm.
just get them out and try and
Right.
I mean, you worry about offending people afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
I forgot who it was that somebody once said, if you're worried about writing about people who did terrible things to you, just think they shouldn't have done terrible things in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think your point about respect and dignity is such a good one. I mean, it's something that I've heard again and again
Yeah,
is the more that, and I think it makes us better writers when we can do that. When we
yeah,
can understand from, our characters or the people who would influence this from their point of view, we can create a better, fuller picture of that person.
And it's also, what's your motivation when you're writing? Is your motivation to get back at people who did bad things to you? Or is your motivation to try and understand why this person did what they did, and to
Right.
understand the character's relation or reaction to that person? And if you operate from that point of view, I think you can't possibly offend people unless they just have their own psychological issues, and it really has nothing to do with what you're doing. I mean, in other words, I don't really worry about it the way I used to.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. That's a great piece of advice. So
Yeah.
your book, Did You Have the Life That You Wanted, won the Pencraft Award for Literary Excellence as the best book for fiction in the women category.
Women category, yes.
Yeah. Do you think that there's a difference between how men and women answer the question, did you have the life you wanted?
Yes, I asked a lot of people that question when I was writing this book, and men and women. I definitely think there's a difference. I think, especially women, older women of my generation, many of them did not go. I'm talking about occupations now. Many of them did not go into jobs that they really wanted to do. You know, when I was asked in college what I wanted to major in, and I named all these creative fields, the counselor said to me, become a teacher. That's the only thing you can do. You're a woman, you know. They didn't say that to men. So I think in general, men had more options, and maybe some of them, you know, needed, for financial reasons, didn't do what they wanted to do. But in general, men were happier with their life choices than women. And I also think that this is so generalized, they're less introspective about things like examining their lives. I mean, their sense of regret is maybe I didn't go to visit my mother enough, or I didn't go to that place, or whatever it is. It's not necessarily as fundamental as it is to the women that I asked. And some women that I asked, I was shocked, said, I don't really think that way. You know, I can't really answer that question. I had the life that I had, you know, and a few people were quite upset by that question. They thought, well, I do regret that I didn't do these things, you know, and I certainly didn't write it to upset people.
Right.
I mean, I basically want people to be aware of that and try to rectify it, you know.
Right. That's so interesting. I mean, the whole point about men having more freedom and just
Yeah,
more agency in
yeah,
choosing how that life flowed is
yeah.
such a fascinating study of.
Yeah, it is. It
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
And of course, it varies. You know, different generations will look at different things. My
yeah.
daughter's generation, she's in her 40s, they had much more choices than I ever had. But a lot of their choices now are dependent on the funding of the government. And they're not able to pursue a lot of things that they wanted to do.
Right.
So you may have more choices, but you can't really predict what's going to happen along the way of choosing something and letting that thing stay where it is. Look at even the writing world. Nothing has really changed,
Right.
stayed the same. It's
Right.
totally different. I mean, I was a photographer for many years, and I was doing black and white pictures in the darkroom, and you can call it the dark
Yeah.
ages. But, you
Right.
know, I mean, will spend 8 hours with your hands on
Right.
chemicals anymore?
Right. Well,
But would I have not, no one would have known that then,
right.
you know.
Right. Well, and I love your website because it has so many of your beautiful photos and
Thank
the
you.
traveling you've done, and it's just great. And we'll put your website address in the show notes. But not only that, it seems like photos have changed just because I mean it was expensive to take a picture and develop it back
Yeah.
in the day. And now we can take 10 pictures of the same thing to get the one that we want.
Yes, but
And
it's a
that's,
different way of taking pictures. I mean, I'm comparing it to being a professional photographer,
mm,
but now we just take pictures. We don't really think that it's a great composition. We're not, you know, we're
mhm,
not looking at the lighting. We're not looking to just make a statement. We're not looking, I mean, it's not to say we don't do that occasionally,
mhm,
but it's more of a device to record
mhm,
and to post and to
mhm,
share.
mhm,
In my day, you could take pictures if you went on a trip, that kind of stuff. But you were interested in focusing. You know,
mhm,
you were interested in light, even if you weren't a photographer. You know,
mhm.
you were interested in composing something that said something.
Mm-hmm.
And, unfortunately, many of us have
Mm-hmm.
albums and albums of photographs.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what to do with them.
Right.
But things change, and
Right.
technology changes what we
Mm-hmm.
do. The trick is to try and find something uh, that responds to the technological change, but that you could keep your own creative way of looking at things and bend to that,
Mm-hmm.
adapt to it as much as you can.
Right.
That I find difficult.
Mm-hmm. Because it yeah, it takes that flexibility
Yeah,
to adapt as all the structures and process
yeah,
and technology does, right?
it does. And
Yeah.
and something has to be there for you to adapt to,
Mm-hmm.
you know. I
Right.
mean, in the old days, you wrote an essay, you sent it to two or three magazines,
Mm-hmm.
and you were lucky if somebody answered you. But still,
Right.
now, what do you do? There's so many out there. How do
Mm-hmm.
you approach it? But it
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't say that you shouldn't be writing. And
Right.
maybe in a way, you have more options. You
Yeah.
just have to figure a different way of presenting it,
Yeah.
and that's hard, I think.
Yeah. But I love how you came back to the core of you still should be writing. Even, yeah, you still should be taking photographs and maybe still thinking about that composition and lighting
Yeah, well,
and
I'm very interested in young
Mhm,
people learning those crafts
mhm,
in the sort of old-fashioned way. I'm not saying they have to be stuck in that, but
mhm,
to be slower about it,
mhm,
and not do everything digitally. Maybe
mhm.
take a pad and pencil or a good pen, and
Right.
and it's a different way of learning, different way of thinking about things. And
Hmm.
believe me, I am guilty of not doing that. As
Hmm.
much as I should.
Right.
But I remember all the joy of doing it,
Hmm.
and when you're writing, I remember one of the first things I ever wrote seriously, and I was writing with a pen in a journal, and an emotional thing happened, and I dug my pen into the paper, and I literally ripped it because I got so carried away with it.
Right.
I can't imagine doing that now, but
Hmm.
this really is a challenge to the teachers of creative writing or other creative pursuits to ignite that enthusiasm in writers and
Hmm.
find a way that they can best express themselves and to slow down a little,
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
appreciate what the craft is and what you're
Right.
you're trying to do and not just vomiting things.
Yeah. Right. Right. Well, and I think one of the ways that, we do slow down is with our friends. And
Yeah,
you have so many rich female characters and friendships in this book. There's Anita, of course, but there's her mom and Denise and Cindy and they're
yeah, they're,
all
they're,
part
they're
of the
important.
story. Yeah. So tell
They're
us,
important.
yeah, how do you think our female friendships help create the life we wanted?
Well, I just look at my own life. When
Hmm.
I was a young girl growing up in Brooklyn, I had two best friends who were twins,
Hmm.
identical twins,
Hmm.
and we used to spend the entire day outside,
Hmm.
unsupervised, and we called ourselves the Super Triplets, and we ran around terrorizing, people with our chalks or whatever it was on roller skates, and
Right.
we're still friends to this day.
Hmm.
And when we get together, we giggle like we're 3 years old. But it's a very
Beautiful.
supportive thing. And throughout my life, through high school, through college, I
Hmm.
made friends that I'm still friendly with.
Hmm.
And through, as Anita, she made friends at her work situation. She made friends in the consciousness raising group, and they remained a great source of support for her throughout her life.
Right.
And she lost some people, through
Hmm.
death, through
Hmm.
moving and all that, as we all do.
Yeah.
But I think when you're a younger person, you're more social. When you're older, uh, you don't reach out as much unless you join things.
Hmm.
But I mean, also you meet people through, if you have children,
Right.
through their activities.
Yeah.
And when you're older, you don't have that. So you have to always find new ways, or you have to find friends that you still like after all these years.
Yes. Right. 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 It reminds, I mean, your comment about Anita and losing people. I mean, it reminds me of one wonderful couple of lines that you have. You don't get to be our age without scars. And I certainly had a body full of them.
Yeah.
Psychological scars, internal scars were impossible to see. If only
Yeah.
there was an MRI that recorded our eroded self-images and repassed hurts. If so, would we have believed such proof?
Well, we should look at our skies with pride,
Yeah,
really, at this
yeah,
point, you know.
yeah,
I've
right?
got a lot of them, you know, I mean, visible one.
Yeah.
And I feel it for myself that I'm a survivor, you know,
Hmm.
and I'm
Hmm.
proud of that fact, you know, not always, but you know,
Right.
now that I'm looking back, I think that you know, I got those scars honestly.
Yeah. Honestly, I love that. I got those scars honestly. Oh, that's powerful. So there's so much legacy and perspective in this book. Did you have the life you wanted? Did your perspective on your life change as you wrote it? Your view of meaning?
Yes. I think as a for me personally, and this Anita went through this too, I always wanted to go back to school
Hmm.
and to see if I was such a terrible student as I remember, because I
Mm.
was too busy in the 1970s burning my bra, whatever it was. So I went to school when I was 65
Mm.
and I got my MFA.
Hmm.
And I found out that I was a good student, which is
Hmm.
like shocking to me. But
Hmm.
of course, I was taking what I wanted to take,
Hmm.
and that I had the respect of the people around me because I was probably older than most of the teachers, you know.
Right.
So I got a different. I went there as in my mind as a young person,
Hmm.
forgetting that I had a whole history. And yet I learned that I did have something to give. And what I did learn was that I actually loved teaching, which was something that I rejected my whole life.
Hmm.
So I tried to portray that with Anita because I thought
Hmm.
it was important to show that
Right.
she maybe she didn't correct everything that she was regretful for, but she managed to find other things that took that place. I mean, you
Hmm.
might say to yourself as an older person, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that, I should have done this. But
Right.
really, as an older person, you probably don't want to do all those things. You
Hmm.
think you do. So
Right.
find something else that gives you another perspective. And that
Hmm.
I learned,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
through writing this and asking so many people that question.
Right. Well,
Yeah, and it was
I,
important for me to find other people my age who went through
mm,
similar things and to
mhm,
see how they responded. And I was surprised, I have to say, how few women in particular said I didn't have the life I wanted. Most of them were much more pragmatic about it. You know, they
mm,
had children, they had responsibilities, they did this, they did that.
mm,
That, you know, and they weren't necessarily doing what they wanted, but as retired people, they were happier in a
mm,
way because they were doing things without having to take care of somebody else.
mhm.
Well, that didn't last long because you always have to take care of somebody.
Right.
But I mean, there were a few people who said, as Cindy says in the book, that when more she thought about it, she realized she didn't have the life she wanted, and that was
Mhm,
very upsetting to her.
mhm,
You know,
mhm. Yeah. Well, it's so interesting to me what you just said there about going back to school and learning that you did like teaching. I mean, if that's the only thing presented to you as a young person and you know, I don't want to infer too much, but
yeah,
you reject it out of hand because it's like, what? That's the only thing that you're telling me that I'm doing, and then to come back to it and
yeah.
realize it was something that was meaningful to you. That's so fascinating.
Yeah. And also, I was able, as an older person, to teach the way I wanted to teach. If I was teaching in a school system in New
Hmm.
York City as a 25-year-old,
Right,
they would give you, you have to teach this, you have to teach that. They would give
right.
you their own schedule and their own, and you wouldn't be able to really necessarily teach the way you wanted to. And
Hmm.
I don't think I would have enjoyed that.
Right. Oh, that's a good
So
point.
as an older person, I
Right.
designed the curriculum. I did prompt writing with them.
Hmm.
I had a lifetime of experience of
Hmm.
writing
Hmm.
to draw from, which I
Right.
wouldn't have had as a younger person.
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell. You never know what would have happened if you did things at a younger age. But
Right.
you
Right.
know, I look at my parents as Anita looked at her parents and see two people that did not have the life that they wanted,
Hmm.
that they were two intelligent people who who were very much victims of their own times.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for myself, I always said, I don't want to die with regret, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and that was my major impetus in writing this book,
Right.
to show a character who felt that way, but tried to rectify it.
Yeah. Well, I love that because, I mean, you've just not only talked about regret, but talked about rectifying things in a way that's current with the age,
Yeah.
you know,
And who you are.
and who
Yeah.
you are, who
Yeah.
you've become. So it's
Right.
not going back and replacing this thing from the past. It's going back and filling a want or desire, but respectfully of who you are at the time.
Allowing yourself also to
Mm-hmm.
do some of these
Mm-hmm.
things. I think as women, we're taught that we really can't do that much for ourselves. We have to
Mm-hmm.
take care of our children or our husband or our mothers or whatever it is. And it was selfish of us to do what we wanted to do. So as an older person, I just said, well, I've done all those things already.
Mm-hmm.
It's time for me to do what I want to do.
Right.
And it's hard to do that, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Right. Especially after a lifetime of practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, thank you so much for your book. Did you have the life you wanted? It is such a thoughtful and thought-provoking book. And
Thank
I
you.
love
Thank
this
you.
conversation about it, which brings out so much of the goodness, both in
Yeah.
your writing and just in talking with you.
Oh, you too. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for your time. Thank you for listening. Our music was written for us by the incredible duo of Jack Canfora and Rob Koenig. For show notes and more great inspiration, see avitiva.com, avitiva.com.